Hello. So basically, I will continue the discussion given by Professor Weglein. We have already seen the image resolution capability of different image conditions, C2 and C3, in one reflector case, and we see the lobe difference. And we will continue with the two reflector Wedge model to see the resolution differences. But before that, let's define the scope of current study. In this presentation or in current study, we only work on the vertical changing heterogeneous medium. And the more complicated cases, such as both lateral and vertical changing or anisotropic medium, will be the future topic. Now, as I mentioned, let's look at the different resolution capability between two image conditions, C2 and C3, and this time we have the Wedge model. And for the discussion by the Professor Weglein, why the side lobe difference? Professor Weglein has already mentioned when we have the model like this Wedge model, we have two reflectors get closer and closer. The side lobe may get interfering each other. So stop you can distinguish. We all have two reflectors rather than one reflector. So in this comparison, we want to see how much gap is necessary for both C2 and C3 to distinguish we have two reflectors rather than one. Because the Wedge model is a continuous lateral changing model, to avoid that one, we use a series of 1D model to simulate or to replace the Wedge model. The idea is we have two reflectors in each 1D model, and we change the gap between them, and to mimic the red line, the Wedge model. And because we are looking for the image condition itself, so we want to get as perfect as possible implementation, we use the homogeneous overburden for each imaging. That means we image the two reflectors separately. And when we image the second one, the first one is not in the overburden. So we combine the image together to see the resolution. Here is the data we used, and first we use the conventional data as Professor Wegelein's one reflector example, and it's in time domain and frequency domain. And here is the Wedge model result for C2. The first column or the first panel is the reflector, is the image for one reflector only, and the second is the gap between two reflectors, 12.5 meter and 25 meter, 50 meter, and 75 meter. And if we in the 12 meter, we have no way to distinguish we have two reflectors, right? It's just one. And for the 25, it started separate from each other. We start to distinguish we have two, but not completely. For the 50 meter, is like clear we have two, and for the 75 meter, it's fully separated. So in this case, is the gap necessary gap is 50 meter. And for the this is for the C2 imaging, C3 image, sorry. Then similarly, the first panel is the one reflector imaging. And in the 12.5 gap, we have no way to distinguish we have two. And to the 25, we have two repeated pattern here, so we know that we have two reflectors here. And for 50 meter is fully separated. You can even see some gap in between. And 75 meter is more than enough. So this is for this comparison, and that the necessary gap is 50 meter. And now I want to show you a broadband data comparison. And in this comparison, we will introduce a very extreme unrealistic case. We realize it's unrealistic. That is for the zero frequency, the frequency component is not zero. So we have some zero frequency component in the wavelet. That is not realistic, but let's see. So similarly, we have the one reflector, and we have the 12.5 meter and 25 meter, 50 meter. until 50 meters is still not enough, but 75 meters, we have two groups of the events, so we know that's a 75 meter. And similarly, and in the C2, and if we have the, in this case, I think the necessary gap is 50 meters. So we have that for the broadband. Now let's look at the wave propagation component, which is the second integral in the wave equation migration. The purpose is that, as Professor Weglein mentioned, in heterogeneous case, in real world, we have heterogeneous overburden. So it's not only about the image condition itself, it's also about the wave propagation. How we arrange the image wave propagation component to return the resolution capability for each image condition. Oh, sorry, this condition, this type. It's for each image condition in heterogeneous medium, not to introduce a high frequency approximation or diminish the image condition resolution capability. We will look at the C2, C3 separately, and first we start from the C3 case. So from Professor Weglein's introduction, we already know the wave propagation component for C3 is the Green theorem wave prediction with a special Green function J0dn. And in the homogeneous case, like all the example previously show, the J0dn use is analytic because the analytic J0dn existing in the homogeneous case. However, as I said, our goal is to implement the equally effective for all frequencies wave propagation component for C3 in heterogeneous medium. And in heterogeneous medium, there is no analytic J0dn, so we have to go to some numerical scheme. And we need to confirm the numerical scheme is achieve equally effective for all frequencies property or feature for heterogeneous medium. That is, we do not diminish the do not diminish the image condition resolution capability. How to confirm that? And that is still on the whiteboard. Professor Weglein had already introduced the idea, and very carefully we have that just here. I just quickly go over it to remind you. So from homogeneous, we have some heterogeneity. So now we have heterogeneous overburden. And we put a C0 over C1 reflector here and use the numerical scheme to predict not wave field, but wave source, not source wave field and receiver wave field, but the source receiver down to get a physical experiment at depth as a reflector. And then we ask the time-space coincidence and to get the imaging. Then we compare, because the image condition is say that ask space-time coincidence. So it's only care about the local property. It will not care about the far from the image point, the heterogeneity. So no matter the heterogeneity is there or not there, the image should be same. We just compare the same image from the homogeneous overburden and the heterogeneous overburden. If they match each other, we have fully confidence that the wave propagation component does not introduce any further issue in the images. So we preserve the equally effective for all frequency feature for the C3 image condition. And finally, we just, for the field data, field application, we can fully confident to apply our scheme, the numerical scheme on some field data for image the unknown reflector in the real data. Next, I will just show you three comparisons to demonstrate this. First, we have a very simple linear variant model. Here is the benchmark. As I said, the benchmark is the homogeneous overburden and the C0 over C1 reflector, the target here. And this is the model we use. Is we have a taper, a linear taper, and then we have the same target. We use the C3 image condition and to get the image. And we should have two figures. This is the wiggle of the image. But because they are identical, they over each other, so we can see one. That's perfectly identical. That means we didn't introduce any fast-phasing approximation in the wave propagation component. So the fully capability of image condition itself is maintained or retained. Now it's it's a little more complicated case. It's a smooth bumper. We have a smooth bumper in our velocity model, and the benchmark still the homogeneous overburden. And the same story again, the two images just identical. So we have confidence in this model, in this situation, we preserve the fully effective, equally effective for all frequencies feature. And the third one is the toughest one is the salt body. We have a discontinuous change, or the very rapid change is salt body here, and very high frequency here. And the target is below that, and the benchmark still the homogeneous overburden. Then we have the image, and that is again identical for two velocity models. So even in this case, we do not have any high frequency approximation in the wave propagation component for C3. Now let's look at the C2 image condition. And for the C2, we do not want to wave propagation component to introduce any further issue for the C2 imaging. So we use the C2 image with the homogeneous overburden as a benchmark, and to compare the two images to see if we can avoid any high frequency approximation in the wave propagation component in the C2 image condition. So we use the same three models. The first is linear varying, and for the C2 we get identical image inside even in the C2 image condition, and this wave propagation component is the finite difference. The finite difference component, we can avoid introduce high frequency approximation in the wave propagation component. And the soft bump model, and we have the identical. The toughest is the salt body model, and we have I would like more words here. We have identical imaging. In fact, we have images over each other, but we have artifacts in the heterogeneous case above that. That is the artifact by the multiple reflection in the forward propagation wave field. That is not by the multiple in the data. In the data for image, there is no multiple. We remove the multiple. It's by the multiple reflection in the propagation. Is that clear? Maybe I just draw that for you, and for you clear understand. So for the C2 image condition, we have you can see here. Okay, we have the source and the receiver. So we have forward propagating source wave field, and we have back propagating receiver wave field. They meet each other. That means space-time coincidence. We have the image here. That is for homogeneous overburden. But this time we have source body here. That's the high velocity zone, and we have the forward propagated imaging, forward propagated source imaging, source wave field. Directly penetrate the source body, but we have some bump back force wavefront like this. And when this one meets the receiver wave field, back propagated receiver wave field, we will get this is the real image like this one. This will be the artifact that you see on the top. So that is nothing wrong with the wave propagation component. That is what I want to mention. It's not any high frequency component, high frequency approximation here. No, that would never occur C3, because in the C3 we predict the source wave receiver down, not the source wave field, receiver wave field down, and we will generate a physical experiment here. The physical experiment will never affect by something above. If we implement it correctly or properly. So, finally, I would like to talk a little bit about the numerical implementation for the three examples I showed you for C2 and C3. We start from the C3. The numerical scheme for the C3, the G0DN calculation, is based on the Taylor series expansion. And the detail is described in our last year annual report. You can find that if you want have more interest. But let me summarize that. There are two important parameters for the series expansion, like every series expansion method, is the step length and the number of terms. For the three examples we showed in previous section, and here is for the given error tolerance 1%. This is the necessary step length for a given step length is the necessary number of terms. And all the tables are already in the annual report. You can see that. For choosing the parameters for the J0DN calculation is that if we have more severe heterogeneity, and if we want to achieve the same error tolerance, we need more number of terms or smaller step size. So the value showed here, the table, can be served as the initial choices for the parameter if you have more challenging heterogeneity. And then we look at the C2 case, and in that case, the wave propagation component is finite difference, FD. The necessary parameter for all three models for the finite difference are not the same, because some are easy, some are tough. For the coding simplicity's sake, we just use the same type of the parameter that satisfy the toughest model, which is the salt model in this case. For all three examples, that just make my job easier. Use one scheme for three. So for that case, the parameter I use is here. The dx dt is 5 milliseconds, dx dy is symmetry and is 5 meter, and we have the fourth order finite difference. Here is the computational cost for the numerical implementation for C2 and C3. Because we use the same scheme for each image condition, so the runtime is roughly the same. For the C2 is about 5 minutes, for C3 is about 10 minutes. Why the wave propagation component discussion, just the second discussion of this talk, important? That's because the structure resolution ability or capability for each image condition will not diminish by the heterogeneity. So when we talk about resolution difference for C2 and C3, it will not, if we implement it correctly, this will not influenced by the heterogeneity overburden or homogeneous overburden. That will be the number you see in the table will be the same. As I mentioned at the beginning, the future plan would like for more complicated heterogeneous medium. This is also mentioned by Professor Weglein. The current numerical method may fail, and the more sophisticated numerical methods such as the lattice-Boltzmann method may be necessary. We will start more complicated heterogeneous medium such as both lateral and vertical changing, and maybe isotropic media. And we will keep you posted. Finally, let's draw the conclusion. First, we propose the first image method that equally effective at all frequencies, and that is the C3 image condition. Not the C3 image, the implementation. We also propose a numerical scheme to calculate the J0DN for heterogeneous medium. And we demonstrated that for the example we showed, the three examples, the numerical scheme can achieve equally effective for all frequencies compare the analytical solution for the homogeneous medium. So that's all. Thank you very much.
It's an excellent work in the presentation. One suggestion is when you show the result for the homogeneous overburden and for the heterogeneous, it looks like there's no issue. I think it would be educational to include step size or a number of terms in the Taylor series where it's inadequate.
Okay.
So you don't. So it looks like somehow it's over.
Oh yeah, I didn't mention. Yeah.
And then what we're going to look at is, so let's say they don't match. Yes, the homogeneous case and the heterogeneous, they don't match. Yes. Then how do you know what to adjust? Do you adjust the step size? Do you take more terms from the Taylor series? To give more detail about how that looked at the same, because the first time you apply it for some step size and number of terms, most likely will not look the same. Yes? It's going to have to be an adjustment of the numerics. Yes? So it's that matching. And then how is there some guide that is it more efficient to put more terms or smaller step size? Yes? Under what circumstances?
Okay.
But it's
Thank you.
very good, very clear.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
So basically, these two methods, when you extrapolate the C3, you extrapolate along depth, right? It's top, one thinking. Another one for RTM, you propagate in time, backward propagate time.
Yes.
In fact, there is another version also the propagating time for the double square root part.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
No, you're exactly right, Fachi. The double square root equation from first is a way, and then different approximate for different, yes, 5 degree, 15 degree, was expanding. That whole activity was a Claerbout 3, arranging it. I think I do need to make it clear. This group has not invented any new imaging principle or concept. 1, 2, 3 were there in 71. Stolt, we did some extension together, and the others I mentioned, George McMegan, yes, and Dan Whitmore, yes, took it back in time. Yuzan and so on did the geometric optics. What the single thing that this group has done is arranging for Claerbout 3 in heterogeneous media without that making any one way. In other words, let me say something about what that means, one way, two way. If you have a homogeneous medium, that's the only time that a wave moves at an innate point in one direction. It moves away from the source to that receiver. As soon as you make any heterogeneity, yes, as smooth as you like, if at that one point you assume it's moving in one direction and it's not homogeneous, that's a high frequency approximation, like WKBJ, asymptotics, yes? So we're looking to avoid that kind, because if you look at Clayton Stolt, you look at Stolt Weglein 85, it was Claerbout 3, but smooth and then high frequency. Why are we trying to avoid high frequency? We're trying to get the benefit of low frequency data, yes? So in the propagation model, don't make high frequency. The imaging conditions don't arrange that's the only contribution we've made. That G0DN is a way to say we're not going to assume it's one-way propagation. When we say one-way propagation can enter globally and locally. When you have a wave that you say is a diving wave, you say it's two-way in a macro sense. But at every point you're assuming it's one way. Understand? Down, 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 up, 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 and it's heterogeneous. Okay? You understand? Well, we're avoiding local. So how do you arrange to avoid it? So you avoid it by saying any of your volume predictions, which are assuming one way, either locally or in some global sense, they will take an anti-causal Green's function like WKBJ or Gazdag, right? And just go back, yes? In a non-homogeneous medium. We're saying that's the issue to avoid. Make a Green's function, which is not anti-causal, take something back to smooth. Make the Green's function and its derivative vanish on the bottom, yes? And that will allow for two-way propagation and then arrange the numerics, yes? So that it matches a homogeneous overburden, where you know from an analytic implementation of C2 or C3, the implementation has not made an error because it's C0 over C1. It's the imaging condition. Yes? Take that information and make a heterogeneous matching with the numerics in the heterogeneous, yes? Driven to match the homogeneous case. That is not a closed subject. Okay? These are initial tests. So I just want to make clear the like the double square root, which is or Stolt migration, is C3 double the square root was looking for lateral varying. In other words, so right between B of X and B at that time, yes? And different taking that square root doing an expansion, but it was all C3. You're exactly right. So again, we're not making any claim to have invented C3. It was in, at least in 71, yes? We're saying we're arranging it for heterogeneous. The benefit from the resolution benefits of C3 as an imaging condition, and arrange in addition that the way you arrange for the image has not discounted low frequency. Clear? Just that one thing, just the arrangement is what we're looking to improve, not the imaging condition. That is a long history before us, and many ways to go with it. Exactly right. So, okay, I think I have sort of a roundup talk. I think lunch is soon, so you don't want to compete with lunch.
Just one comment. From the imaging condition, it shows seems your method is more ambiguity friendly, but your test result didn't show this advantage.
Okay. I'm not sure what you said.
I mean, the
You have amplitude control, yes.
Yeah, your method seems more amplitude friendly.
Yes.
Yeah.
One question that we have not answered, and it was raised by Scott Morgenchop of a recent visit, is these imaging conditions, the C2, C2, RTM, the actual image is different. In other words, one will be symmetric, one will be asymmetric. What's all that about? Yes? In other words, they're not comparable. We compare each to their own, yes? And how does each reduce its side lobe? Then there are different imaging principles and are not easily compared apples to apples. Apples, in other words, but we can talk of RTM in terms of its ability to locate a layer, yes? And the same for C3. The why, I'm sure people do know this, we just haven't studied why do those images have different shapes in the two migration lines. Yes. But your initial point that C3 has superior amplitude control. It has a superior interpretation ability because it's an experiment. The physics of an experiment is unmatched. That C3 we had nothing to do with inventing. C3 did not come from this group. I want to repeat that. There's no new imaging condition that we have developed here in all the years that we've been here. Okay? We're looking at a way to deal with it for the propagation parts, yes, that don't compromise low frequency. Okay? That's all. That's not an apology, it's just a statement. Okay? So that's an example of Stolt migration C3, double square root C3, many C3 activities. Okay? Somehow, I don't know why, all that C3 stopped and C2 RTM became the dominant. That's unclear. When we go to a workshop, they talk about migration and RTM as synonymous, like a Kleenex and a tissue. You got a Kleenex? You say a migration, where's the RTM? That concerns me, because there was another Claerbout principle, that somehow didn't, you understand? We're not saying Claerbout 3 is us, that's Claerbout, you understand? It's just somehow the capability within that other imaging principle we've lost track of. Okay? I think it's worth revisiting.
Maybe C2 is more easy to implement and cost, yeah. The cost, yeah, less
well,
cost. I would suggest to show example is like BP 2004 or 2007. So I compare with the C2.
Yes, well, we were happy to work with you on more complicated synthetic and field data. But nothing about this will be distributed until we test field data. Yanglei was asking about that.
Yeah.
We always do synthetic. In fact, we do analytics synthetic. In other words, data is not even numerical because we want to focus on what we're developing processing methods. We want to make sure that the error in the output is attributable to our process, not to the data generation. As soon as you start to find a difference, you don't have a multiple. You have a finite difference of a multiple. Yes? And so, yes, of course we have to go to that, but we go from very controlled synthetic, more complicated synthetic field data, and then codes get released. So all the multiple removal methods, for example, Qiang Fu was here with the deghosting methods that he developed, yes. Until Dr. Mahan in the last vote here did ExxonMobil data and PGS data with that code, then it got distributed. Yes. They must do field data here before it goes out. But synthetic has to come first. Exactly right. But that is a question you had to raise. Charlotte.
My question is, what is the difference between the C3, the Stolt CIII method from Mechino? Mechino imaging. Yeah.
Marchenko?
Yeah, Mechino.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Yeah, for that one.
I've written a paper recently. It's in the annual report, it's in the membership, that says we were discussing all of the things happening here, and because we see things like Marchenko and the interrogatory virtual sources, our view is that it's always important, and we try to do this, look at what the best current capability is. In other words, what is Marchenko bringing that Stolt CIII doesn't? What possibly could you image more than a curved and effective and do amplitude analysis, right? And you need the velocity. So unless I know what is it that in principle, I don't need to see field data, but in principle, what is it adding to either methods that need a velocity or don't need a velocity? I look on with interest, but not attention. I need to know what is it aiming to improve compared to current capability. That's not clear. So that doesn't mean it's not there. It's just not clear to me. Okay? You understand? It's very dangerous if we in a group should talk to ourselves. We're improving at ISS, and ISS is better, and next year is going to get ISS better. You know? What's the rest of the world doing on that problem? You know? You're going to say, what is everyone doing before ISS? How does it compare to FK and radon and all the rest? You understand? Now you're connecting to what makes you differentiate. So I don't get that sense elsewhere. We're busy, but I'm happy to hear we are on very good terms with people like Will Sneeder, yes, who's very forthright and high integrity at Colorado School of Mines. So, because we heard the word, we don't need velocity, and I asked, well, do you need the velocity? Yeah, of course we need velocity. I said, okay. You understand? So, we need to be positive, but we've got to always, including for ourselves, make sure we don't cross the line into marketing. Nothing we do here is the solution to the problem that was the last word that will never be improved upon, the ultimate and final solution. Nothing from here will ever be the last word on any subject. It's at best a progress. At best. Are we clear? There is over-marketing on certain topics. And so let me make it, I'm happy, I hope this is being paid. The methods I criticized, like FWI is not a problem. FWI doesn't have an ego, it doesn't have ambition, it's a method. It's fine. The people who oversell it, that's different. It's like people say, statistics not the problem, the statisticians are the problem. You know? In other words, FWI is model matching. That's not evil. That's nothing wrong with that. When you start to tell me that nothing will ever be better than that in the entire universe, over and over again in speeches and writing, that's the final and ultimate solution in writing, that's when FWI never said that. Makes sense? People say that. Is my statement clear? There's danger in that. Why is there danger? Because at some point, people find out whether it's electromagnetic, it's going to answer all the problems, or whatever, seismic again, you know. And electromagnetic is fine, it has a place. Look at Statoil, what they do. Yeah? It's just not the answer to everything. Nothing ever is. And so, what's the danger? People will get tired with some overselling. Research unit where I'd be in a company, someone overselling, some managers get sick of it, and they shut the whole thing down. They just don't want to hear it anymore. You understand? Yeah, right. We heard about it. That last thing that the lab produced, it was fantastic. Always going to work. The results, always going to work. That's what people will tell them, and then it doesn't happen. Well, let me tell you a word about my history in multiples. I worked at Arco, and I was working on imaging with Stolt. And I was told by the people working on multiples there that multiples were a solved problem, and I should look at them. They were doing FK and radon. I was in Brazil working with Paulo Carvalho, a visiting professor, went back to Arco and heard a speech by the operating unit saying, "We're sick of you researchers telling us multiples are not a problem. We're drilling and there's nothing there." That was a shock to me. It was a life-changing that I had to listen to the people who were actually making drill decisions about what works and doesn't work. I went back to Brazil and we started working on multiples. When I first went down there, we were working on migration inversion. So we have to watch out for overselling. All of us. We can be enthused, we can be optimistic, but it's just a method. And it'll work sometimes and it'll have issues. And something is going to have to get beyond it. Any questions on that? I hope you still have sponsors.